Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to talk about car scratch and chip repair, and we'd like to thank Fred Stetson for liking and sharing the podcast. From Wednesday, June 15th to Sunday, June 19th, you can get a free download of our new ebook. It's called Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, Book 16, and you can download it from Amazon. In 1938, Sigmund Edelstone started a business selling paint he purchased from manufacturers to match the original paint for cars. He put the paint in small touch-up bottles and sold it for fixing scratches and chips on cars. And he called the company Duplicolor. And they're still making paint to match the original paint color for cars and trucks.
Cool.
In 1984, Sherwin-Williams acquired Duplicolor. This week we're going to talk about some tips on repairing scratches and chips on a car.
Just a car?
A car, a truck, an SUV.
A van, a bus, a scooter. Are we just listing things?
On your vehicle's paint job, there are three main layers. There's a primer coat, a base coat, which is the color of the paint, and a clear coat over the paint's color to protect it, and it also makes the paint look better.
Does waxing your car protect it, or is it just a waste of time?
J.D. Power says regular waxing helps preserve the clear coat over your car's paint. The clear coat is protecting the paint from moisture, salt, ultraviolet rays, bird droppings, tree sap, and other contaminants. They say when the clear coat wears away, the paint can start to fade, discolor, and allow moisture to penetrate, causing rust. Cars that are garage kept in warm climates need less frequent waxing than cars kept outside in cold climates, especially where salt is used. They recommend waxing your car at least a couple times a year if it's kept in a garage in a warm climate, and up to 4 times a year in cold climates. Some top-rated car wax comes from Meguiar's, Meguiar''S, Mother's, Mother''S, Turtle Wax, Turtlewax, and Chemical Guys, Chemical''Guys. In the last episode, I didn't spell mosquito dunks, and dunks is D-U-N-K-S, and I got a couple emails saying I couldn't understand what you said. So I need to spell. People can't understand me.
Joy.
What's interesting about some scratches on your car's finish is it's just in the clear coat. So you wouldn't use a touch-up paint to try to cover up the scratch. You would just sand it out.
Touch-up paint meaning what? The bottles with the brush and the cap?
Right.
How can you tell if the scratch is in the clear coat?
So what you can do is wipe or spray the scratch with soapy water, and if it disappears when it's wet and then it reappears when it's dry, it's just a scratch in the clear coat.
So the paint isn't damaged.
Right. The scratch is just in the clear coat over the paint. And what's happening is when light hits that groove, it's reflecting back differently, so you see the scratch. When you spray water into it, the groove gets filled and it's reflecting light back more evenly, so you can't really see the scratch. So if the scratch is all the way down to the paint, then you're going to see the scratch whether it's wet or not.
How can you fix a scratch in the clear coat?
You would clean the scratch and the area around it with a microfiber cloth.
How big of an area?
A couple inches all around it. And if you can rub your fingernail over the scratch and feel the groove, you're going to start with 3000 grit sandpaper, and you're going to get a sandpaper that's rated for wet sanding.
What will it say on the label?
So it'll say wet or dry. If you can't feel the groove on the scratch, you would start with 5000 grit sandpaper. So you'd spray the scratch in the area around the scratch, and then you would spray the sandpaper with water, and you're gently going to rub the sandpaper perpendicular to the scratch. You can wrap the sandpaper around a small sponge so it has more uniform pressure, and it's going to give you a little more control. And once you sand it lightly for a few minutes, you're going to use a microfiber cloth to wipe off the area and see if you can still see the scratch. Once the scratch starts to disappear, you can start using a circular motion with 5,000 grit sandpaper and water an inch or so beyond the scratch in all directions. Make sure you're still using light pressure. Then you're going to clean off the area with soap and water.
What kind of soap?
You'd want to use a mild soap like Dawn, D-A-W-N. The area is going to look slightly hazy. Then you're going to use a microfiber cloth and polish the area with an auto polish for fine scratches.
What is an auto polish?
So this is a paste with a fine, mild abrasive in it. It's going to smooth out the area so you don't see the scratch. You're going to work the auto polish with a circular motion in that area.
So wax on, wax off.
Right. And then you're going to rinse it off and buff the area with a clean, dry microfiber cloth. Then you're going to wash and wax the area to remove that hazy look.
Okay.
And you should definitely check out some videos online. It'll give you more confidence using sandpaper on your car.
We should do some videos on this.
Yeah. On your car.
Not on my car. My car still looks good.
If you have a scratch that's removed the paint, you can buy touch-up paint at the dealer or an auto parts retailer.
Such as?
Napa, AutoZone, O'Reilly, or Advanced Auto.
You want to do all their jingles?
And you need to know your car's paint color or the code. You can call the dealer with your VIN number and they'll give you the paint code. Or you can check your owner's manual to find out where your car's paint code placard is, because it could be on the door jamb or the door, in the glove box, under the hood, or in the trunk.
Exciting.
You can get a small touch-up bottle with a brush on the cap or a pen tip and a brush on the cap. And many bottles now have a pen tip for a scratch and a brush for a chip on one side. On the other side of the bottle, there's a foam brush with clear coat to protect the paint. At the auto parts stores by us, they have Duplicolor Scratch Fix all in one. So Duplicolor is D-U-P-L-I, capital C-O-L-O-R. And these touch-up paint bottles have a top cap with a prep tip. And you can use this to remove loose paint and rust. It's angled to get into a scratch with the edge, or you can use the wider flat surface for a chip. One side has a pen tip that retracts when you press it against the car so you can fill a scratch, and it has a brush for chips and a brush with clear coat to seal the paint. Duplicolor recommends looking at your car at least once a month to catch small scratches and chips before they become rusty and affect a larger area.
Yeah.
They recommend to repair a scratch, use the prep tip to clean off any rust or loose paint, then use the pen tip to fill the scratch with paint. The tip is spring-loaded. You just press down and move it along the scratch. Allow the paint to dry for 30 minutes, then apply the clear coat over the paint with the foam brush.
Cool.
For small chips, use the prep tip to remove any rust and loose paint. Wipe the area with rubbing alcohol and a clean cloth. Use the brush to fill the chip with paint. Allow it to dry for 30 minutes, then cover the paint with the clear coat. I read an article on the Car and Driver website, and they recommended the Duplicolor Scratch Fix all-in-one touch-up paint bottles, and they also recommend the Duplicolor Perfect Match automotive paint spray cans. They have a nozzle that rotates, and it has a wide spray pattern for an even coat.
Cool. When would you use a spray can?
When you have a larger area that you want to repair, like the size of a dime or larger. And if you have rusty areas on your car, what you would do is wash the area well with soapy water and use a wax and grease remover on it and then dry it off.
A wax and grease remover for cars.
Right. And some top-rated come from Rust-Oleum, R-U-S-T-O-L-E-U-M, Clean Strip, Prep-All. Clean Strip is K-L-E-A-N, capital S-T-R-I-P, and Duplicolor. Tape off and cover the areas around the repair. If it's the panel around the wheel, for example, you're going to mask off all the panels around it and cover the wheel with a drop cloth. You want to blend the paint with the surrounding area. You would use 100 to 150 grit sandpaper and a sanding block to remove all the rust and feather into the surrounding paint. You need to remove all the rust. You'd wipe down the area with a clean microfiber cloth, and you can use a body filler to blend low spots or fill any pitting. And if you use a body filler, you would let that dry for around 30 minutes, but check the label.
What is a body filler?
A body filler is usually a polyester resin and a hardener that forms a repair putty. Smooth the body filler with 180 to 220 grit sandpaper, but check the label. Wipe it down with a clean microfiber cloth. Then use corrosion-resistant etch primer. It's going to help protect bare metal. You're not going to sand and etch primer generally. Then you're going to apply 3 coats of an auto primer spray and check how long it needs to dry. Some are about 8 hours.
Wow.
You're going to sand that lightly with 400 grit sandpaper and blend the edges. You don't want to sand down to bare metal. If you do, you need to reprime the area. And then wipe it thoroughly with a microfiber cloth and then a tack cloth. There can't be any dust when you apply your paint. Apply 2 to 3 coats of your paint, blending it into the original paint on the panel. And make sure the rest of the car is covered with tape and paper or a thin drop cloth. When you're spraying, you want to focus on the repair, but you're spreading out a couple inches. Definitely watch some videos to get a feel for it.
Right.
Usually going to wait 15 minutes between coats, but check the label on the product you're using. Once that's dry, you're going to apply a clear coat, usually 2 coats, but check the label. Once you're done with the clear coat, you can apply a blending solvent to the edges of the painted area.
What is a blending solvent?
So this is a solvent that dissolves the edges above the area you sprayed, because usually around the edge it's going to be grainy and dry, and this will melt those edges into the new clear coat and the original clear coat.
Wow,
Pretty
magic.
Cool. Pretty cool. Whenever you're using spray paints, make sure you do it in a well-ventilated area and wear a paint respirator. Use an N95 mask for sanding, and 3M is one of the top-rated companies for respirators and dust masks you're going to find in hardware stores and home centers.
What is an etching primer?
An etching primer bonds to bare metal, and some of them have rust inhibitors added into it. It's going to stick to bare metal better than some other primers, and most that I saw aren't meant to be sanded. It needs to be covered with another primer, like a filler primer.
What is a filler primer?
So this fills small pits and light scratches, and this primer is going to help the paint color stick better. There's also epoxy primers that can be used on bare metal, like an etching primer. And these aren't generally designed to be sanded, so you would put an auto primer over this, which is sandable, like a filler primer.
What type of tape should you use on a car?
So you want a quality, delicate surface masking tape or a painter's tape, because it has a weaker adhesive so it doesn't leave a residue. Some top-rated are Scotch Delicate Surface Masking Tape, and Scotch is SCOTCH. Scotch Blue Multi-Surface Painter's Tape, Duck Masking Tape, Duck is DUCK. They also have a Clean Release Painter's Tape, and 3M Automotive Masking Tape.
Cool. Should you wear gloves when you're using spray paint?
Yeah, I would use disposable gloves. Nitrile gloves are good for many projects around the house. Nitrile, Nitrile. Some top-rated companies are Red Steer, it's RED, capital STEER, Venom Steel, VENOM, capital STEEL, and Golden Protective Services, GOLDEN, capital PROTECTIVE, capital SERVICES. If you have areas where it's rusty and the rust has actually created a hole, Bondo has repair kits. And Bondo was invented in 1955. 3M purchased the company in 2007.
And how do you spell it?
Bondo, B-O-N-D-O. They're saying if you have an area that has a small hole, wash the spot you're repairing. They recommend using 80 grit sandpaper or a 36 grit grinding wheel on a drill. And that's going to roughen up the surface, get rid of all the rust. You want it down to bare metal. It's also going to help give a better grip for the Bondo. Bondo has self-adhesive patches to cover small holes, so it's like using fiberglass mesh tape for a drywall repair.
Oh, okay.
So for a small hole, they say use Bondo glass filler. It's a 2-part putty. You mix the hardener into the filler and mix it, and then you spread it over the repair area with their plastic spreader that's in the kit. You're going to let this dry 15 to 20 minutes. You're going to sand it and shape it with 40, then 80 grit sandpaper, and then they recommend using Bondo body filler for a smooth finish. And this is also a 2-part putty. You're going to let it dry and then sand it with 120 grit, then 320 grit sandpaper, and then you're ready to prime and paint the area.
Cool. Do you have anything else to add?
I think this is a pretty good overview of some of the repairs you can do yourself if you don't want to spend the money for a professional paint job.
Or a new car.
Right. And if you have an older car, you can do a pretty good job with spray cans of primer, paint, and clear coat.
Cool.
But watch a lot of videos.
Yeah.
Practice on cardboard.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our ebooks, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 16 on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter @FixitCohost, and you can follow us on Instagram, Fix It Home Improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.